You might have heard me say a lot that awakening is effortless, that all it requires is to drop the usual fixation we have in our experience, to open up, drop into the one who is seemingly aware, and discover that what we are is centerless, unbounded awakeness, which is not separate from anything, meaning that it's non-dual. It includes everything, but is never separate from it. And while it's true that this process of discovering our true nature truly is effortless, it would also be wrong to assume that it always feels this way, especially initially, when we first move out of this usual way of looking, out of this neurotic fixation into the relaxed openness of our true nature. This can feel quite unusual. We might have the sense that it takes some amount of effort to drop this fixation we often have and to return to the clarity of our own being. And because we have this idea that it needs to be effortless, we sometimes have a kind of resistance when it actually feels like there is an effort. So there's a resistance to the effort. But that, in my view, is a mistake. Because even though eventually that final step where true nature just drops into itself and recognizes itself is effortless, it's happening on its own, we could say, the setup or the initial letting go of the fixation might very much feel like a subtle effort. And if it feels this way, then it's quite fine. It's not that recognizing our true nature requires effort, but because we have been so accustomed to living from this fixation, it feels initially a bit unnatural. It feels like we are doing something new. We are getting out of this habitual way of looking. And because it feels this way, it also seems to us that it's a bit of a struggle. So we don't need to resist this feeling of resistance. If we are going from this contracted state to this awake openness, and it feels a bit uncomfortable or challenging or effortful initially, that's quite fine. At that point, we just need a little bit of courage and faith to stick with it. Because very soon we discover that our true nature really is that wonderful. We discover that it really is centerless. It really is unbounded. It really is effortlessly intimate with everything. And as soon as we begin to notice that, and we see how beautiful the piece of our true nature really is, the more this pathway from ourselves to ourselves becomes effortless and easy. Why? Well, because the mind simply understands that holding on to the fixation isn't really beneficial to us. There's nothing good that comes out of that. We notice that every time we drop our fixations and we open and relax into our true nature, that this is what we want on a very, very fundamental level. This is where true peace and wholeness reside. And because that connection between opening up and peace becomes more and more clear to us, the tendency to want to stick to the fixation becomes less and less weak. And the opening up of that requires less and less effort. So the most effective way to move from that effort to that effortlessness is simply to begin to notice as soon as possible how good it is to knowingly be our true nature, to smell the roses right from the start, even if it feels just like a little bit more openness and relaxation, a little bit more peace and wholeness. We can immediately lean into that and appreciate it. And as a result, the opening up just becomes more and more easy and natural. If, however, we do find ourselves stuck again in a kind of neurotic fixation, and it feels like an effort to create that little bit more of peace and openness in our experience, then make that effort. There's nothing wrong with it. Take that little bit of effort to open up, and as soon as possible, move into this natural enjoyment of your true nature. And rather soon you will see how effortlessness really is the key, that there's never any need to hold on, to maintain a fixation. Invite the mind to participate in this understanding, to clearly see that fixation causes suffering, and the dropping of that brings peace. So whenever we are caught in a fixation, there is much more willingness to put in that small effort of opening up, and then move into this total relaxation and openness. And from there, all that needs to be done is simply to enjoy it.